Hello. So welcome to the next episode of Scale App Podcast. This is Daniel Eisenberg. Most people call me Dan. And I created Scale App Podcast to be, let's call it a journey through all the issues related to how do you build a venture of scale, where there's no objective definition of scale or scale up, but I've chosen a sort of $5 million floor that companies under that floor are invited to listen but not be hosted on the podcast. We're only talking to companies, and I'm very proud of the fact, by the way, that these companies come from all over the world, and today is a case in point. These are not Silicon Valley companies. In fact, one of the 10 so far has been a Silicon Valley company. Silicon Valley, as you've heard me say before, is not the reference point. It's not a reference point for me. It's an interesting phenomenon, but it doesn't define entrepreneurship as far as I'm concerned. Entrepreneurship has existed as long as we've had human beings in the world. I think it's a fundamental trait of being human and being social. And there's no reason that this started or will end in this little patch of land over in California. So that's the end of my editorializing for today. I'm really happy to host the company called Epignosis, which is based and operated from Greece. It's our second Greek venture, which is kind of a cousin of the first one, Yodek, which was a few months ago. And I have with me here the two co-founders of Epignosis, Dimitris Tsingos and Thanos Papagelis, who I think I can also count among my friends. So welcome to both of you. Just say hello, if you will, so we can hear your voices.
Thank you, Dan, so much. It's a really great pleasure to be here again. And, your kind words mean a lot to us. Thank you.
That was Dimitris, by the way.
Thank you, Juan, from my side as well. It is my pleasure to be here. Let's have an open discussion about.
And where do I find you today? Where are you physically located right now?
Personally, I'm in Athens, Greece, and my home.
Got it.
I'm in Athens too. Yeah.
Athens, okay. And Athens is a place I've been maybe 15 times. It's one of the exciting cities in the world. By the way, one of the topics I hope we get to, I don't want to start out with this, but I hope we get to is Greece and what, just sort of zoom up from Epignosis as an example to Greece as more of an ecosystem. So let's try and leave a few minutes for that towards the end. But first of all, just give us your versions. Maybe I'll start with you, Thanos. Tell what is Epignosis?
Okay, that's an interesting question to start with. So Epignosis is a learning technology company. We are building software that helps organizations, mostly small and medium organizations, to become more competitive through training. But we are offering a solution that helps them do everything around training, either compliance training, soft skills training, reskilling people, partner training, or customer training, everything around training in a cost-efficient way through a very easy-to-use and fully functional platform.
Can you just give us a particular use case just to make
this? It's the most easy to understand because let's say that you have a factory and you have legal requirements actually to train your people around safety within your factory. So training in these cases is not a nice to have, but a must have, and can happen various ways. And the learning, and Talent LMS, our main product as well, it's one way of doing it. It's not the only one, but it's one way of doing it and become compliant.
Understood. And Epignosis provides that training platform for this legal compliance.
Yeah, in the past, we offered just the platform. In the last few years, we also offer the content as well, because the platform by itself, it's half the solution. Right now, we have two pieces of software, let's put it this way. It is the main software, the solution, a SaaS product. And we also have the content library of ready-made courses that companies can use to do various things, either compliance or soft skill training, etc.
So I can either build my own or buy one off the shelf, so to speak.
You can build your own. We also offer tools to create your own content or transform. In reality, most customers transform their already existing content into a course material. We can use our own content, or we can buy content from third-party providers. There are many providers that create content for you.
Got it.
It depends.
Got it. Dimitris, that was a pretty comprehensive answer. Do you have a slightly different view or want to highlight a different aspect of Epignosis particularly in terms of the value to the customer?
Yes, first of all, whatever Thanos said, I completely agree. I would offer a view that, this company exists for making business training easy and simple. This is why we were created, because we saw that there is still, and there will always be a need to do training in the business world, and that has to be easy. This is the DNA of Epignosis. Provide training in an easy, affordable way.
Now, this sounds like a huge market. It sounds like there must be tons of companies that are playing in this market. My understanding is that Epignosis is the market leader. Is that true?
Well, it depends on the market segment that you look at, and Thanos can elaborate in more details, but I bet that we are the market leaders in the first-time LMS users. So those companies who decide to use an LMS, a learning management system, and were not using one before, we dominate this area.
Great. Okay, so
Which is amazing. I find it very amazing.
So I think it's amazing as well, and we're going to come back to how that's happened, and how it's happening, and maybe how it will continue to happen. But first, if you wouldn't mind, each one of you, tell the story now of Epignosis only using numbers. Go ahead.
What's the plan? What to do? You mean? Okay, Epignosis today is a company. Let's use numbers. It's a company of 240 people. We have around 12,000 customers around the globe, mostly in English-speaking countries, United States, Canada, Australia, UK, but generally in every country in the world. We are a company of above 50 million in annual recurring revenue, and we have been backed from two very big private equity firms from United States, in total raising a bit above $100 million in private equity.
Are you profitable?
Yes, the DNA of the company is around profitability. The company grew during the Greek crisis, and both of us are Greek founders. So for us, money was not abundant. So we couldn't actually raise money. So we managed actually to grow the company in a very efficient way out of necessity through Greece. And we were profitable from the beginning, actually, even when we were a very, very small company.
It's interesting what you mentioned about necessity, because smart academics in my field make a big distinction between opportunity-based and necessity-based ventures. It's a distinction that I've never quite bought, never quite saw the usefulness of it. And it sounds like in your case, necessity led to opportunity. Would you buy that or correct it in some way?
In a way, I think this is true. I mean, I don't believe that if we were based in another country and under another regime, let's say financial regime, it would be the same kind of company. The company was shaped by all the things we didn't do. We didn't raise money early. We didn't hire expensive executives in the United States. Even now, we do not have many executives in the United States. We avoided doing conferences, which were very expensive in time and money and people. So we said we try to focus in the essence of running the business, and that through time created this, let's say, butterfly effect that gave us the size and the let's say the profitability that currently the company has right now.
What do you mean by that?
Sorry, Dan.
Okay.
I need to share a reflection here.
Perfect.
Necessity did not lead to opportunity. It led to competence. Necessity gave us the competence that was proven crucial for the success of the company.
I see. And when you talk, Thanos, you about essence, running the essence of the business. Can you describe what you mean by essence?
Essence, focusing on the customer, for example, and not the marketing material for venture, for private equity or venture entities. So we're focusing on unit economics. How much money we're making from customers, how much money we're paying to the customer, how we can optimize this. In essence, our main product currently, which is Starling LMS, is a SaaS product. It's not a product, it's an engine where you get traffic on the one side of the engine, we get, let's say, money at the end of the engine and try to optimize this engine. It's part of the engine, the conversion rates from traffic to free users, from free users to customers, and then how much money, how much time we can keep the customer and how we can optimize the lifetime value of the customer. All people most people actually within the company were introverts, and that creates a very distinct DNA around data, numbers.
Wait. We have to stop there. You said most of the people were introverts.
That's true.
Well, explain what you mean by that. This is I've never heard this before.
I can give you an example. That's an interesting example. At the beginning, well, we are introverts. We didn't want to talk directly with customers. We wanted customers to try our product, see if they like the product and buy the product, if possible without interacting with support salespeople. That was the initial idea. So initially, for the 2-3 first years of our main product, we did not have any contact we didn't want people to talk with us directly. We wanted to try the product, create a trial, see if they like the product and buy the product without talking to us. This was, the original DNA. And this is through the fact that we were introverts.
There's a word in English called gobsmacked. You may not have ever heard it. Gobsmacked means I'm astounded. I'm astounded because you've now just said at least 2, maybe 3 things that completely fly in the face of the conventional wisdom. I mean, talking to customers, raising capital, marketing materials. These are essential in today's lore of how you build a business. And what you're saying is, my God, we didn't have any. And by the way, look for opportunity. Don't just put money on the table. And you're saying we got started by doing exactly the opposite. Could this venture, could Epignosis have gotten off the ground? Or let me ask it differently. Would it have been radically different if you weren't in the midst of an economic crisis, if there were a lot of venture capital around, if you did have nice, well-paying jobs that you could rely on? Would it ever have gotten started, or would it be different? I know that's speculation, but sort of go with me, humor me.
I think that's a question for Dimitris, but from my point of view, I think that it will be totally different. That's my view. Can elaborate?
It would be 100% totally different, and I don't know if it would be equally successful. Because, if you are left with a few choices, you can become incredibly creative, Dan, and incredibly hardworking. So, if you have many choices, if life is easy, I don't know if Epignosis would be the same. Epignosis is a really remarkable, I'm tempted to say, unique case of capital efficiency. Investors at the beginning were not believing our numbers. There was a certain reputation around Greek statistics, and they thought we were quitting our books because the company is profitable since 2010 with an annual revenue of $300,000, right? And we were profitable because there was no other choice. And we kept being profitable while growing fast, which is opposite to all conventional wisdom in this kind of entrepreneurship. Actually, I remember many top quality Bay Area funds. I mean, after a few years, I will name them. I have their mails, rejecting us, saying, you're so profitable, that means that you don't want to grow fast. So you are underinvesting, or you are doing something wrong because you are profitable. Which is, it's amazing. 2013, 2014, 2015, we have all this. And we were blessed to finally have growth equity investors knocking our door with a completely different mentality. The growth equity investors appreciated our profitability, but this dominant approach that grow as fast as you can at all cost, and never mind, profitability will come later. Guess what? Most of the time it will never come, because you educate your organization in spending.
So it's a little bit what you're describing is a little bit of a pyramid scheme that a lot of venture capital is a pyramid scheme of passing the deficits on to the next investor, who then passes it on to the next investor, and finally someone exits and maybe the whole venture collapses, or maybe it succeeds in achieving some escape velocity. But then you have to introduce the discipline of profitability much later. And I'm not sure that's easier or harder, but it's a very different challenge in taking a company that's, say, burning $100 million a year and then making it profitable versus build the profitability in from day one.
Actually, I think many entrepreneurs, sorry, Thano, are under the impression that you can just turn a switch and you will stop spending and you will become profitable. It's not like that. The reality says it's not like that.
Thanos.
It's a way of operating, and I truly believe you can change the direction of the company, but it will be very painful. I don't believe it can be easy to go from overspending to underspending, or to have discipline when everyone within the company has actually worked within a certain framework that is about spending. How you can change that? It's not easy to do that.
Well, I can imagine that even if you just look at executive salaries, where there's G&A, where even just that line item, changing that significantly in order to impact productivity will have a revolutionary, probably negative impact on your business, because you're building a business on very expensive executives with very high salaries. In your case, you're building a venture on people who are, well, maybe you don't have alternative employment. You've reduced your lifestyle or your personal expenses down to the minimum because of the recession. And you say at least you're paying your bills, your necessary bills, and that's good enough for now. But I want to take this in a slightly different direction now that you've brought this up, because we had Yodek here a few weeks ago, and the origin story of Yodek is in a certain way similar. It was started around the same period of time, and the stories that was told is a little bit similar. I'm just wondering, Dimitris and Thanos, you've built a group of companies called StarTech Ventures. So I'm wondering if you haven't hit on some kind of recipe. And I wonder if you'd talk about that a little bit. Maybe let's introduce StarTech Ventures, because I know you both are very involved in that. What is it, and what's the recipe?
Well, first of all, Epignosis is the flagship company of StarTech, and in a way, StarTech exists and is successful thanks to Epignosis. So it's a two-way relationship. You touch a very sensitive, how can I say, I'm asking myself, I'm trying to understand what is the recipe. And of course, there is a lot about purpose. There is a lot about, science, reading, all these good things. But also there is the Greek crisis aspect was very important. And the fact that, we were people who knew each other. I mean, Thanos and I know each other since 2001. And there was a group of people with very similar journeys, similar views, similar backgrounds. And we were trying, to succeed. First of all, we were trying to survive economically and to succeed in a very hostile environment. And that brought us together and created, a very difficult to describe, spirit of cooperation. Very different people, we are different people. I mean, you remember Vangelis from Yodek, you see Thanos, you see me. All three of us are quite different people, but we've managed to coexist very successfully because we were driven, life brought us in a situation where there were not so many other choices. So the bet now for us in StarTech is how we shall retain this, this muscle, this Spartan feeling. I mean, I know people around the globe talk a lot about Greek history. Of course, Athens is the most, for very good reasons, the most famous and popular place. Our friends in Sparta, the Spartans, had achieved something very remarkable. To keep living in a Spartan way, right? While they did have abundance of resources. Because the few historians that went to Sparta were impressed by the abundance of resources. But somehow, does the term laconic make sense in English? I mean, the Spartan way. Somehow those people were they were maintaining their Spartan way of life. So in an analogy in StarTech, I want to see companies spending the barely sufficient amounts in everything, barely sufficient. Trying to stick with the barely sufficient spending is so important, even if you do have the resources now to spend more. But unnecessary spending, I think it's a very big trap.
So you guys are in your, let's say, late 40s, let's say 50-ish. And the success of your future ventures are going to be dependent on people who are now 25 or 30 or 35, let's say. Are there any challenges in getting them to accept this Spartan set of values when Greece is not in crisis? It's not what's the right word? It's not overdoing it in terms of opulence, but it's not in crisis anymore. And do you think there are any challenges there in sort of the younger generation? I know that we old people always complain about the younger generation, but are there challenges there?
It's not about. Let me answer, Dimitris, and you can.
Yes, of course.
Complete. I don't believe that the problem is that the younger people are spoiled, let's put it this way, and they want everything for free, etc. It's the fact that the companies we are talking about are at another stage in their lifespan. So we are not anymore a company with limited resources. That's the reality of the business. And how can we remain lean while having unlimited resources? Let's put it this way. It's a challenge. It's a challenge because people see a company that's profitable, that has a good EBITDA, and everyone wants part of this share. And it's hard to communicate in a proper way why this cannot happen and why the long-term survival of this company requires to remain prudent as a way of living and working. That's my
So part of your future success as StarTech, as this engine of successful SaaS ventures, let's say, and globally successful SaaS ventures is going to be in both selecting, but also, I guess, cultivating a mindset which says we can forego present reward for future value creation and participating in future value. Is that it in a nutshell?
Yes, patience. Patience is a quality that people need to re-embrace, and that in order to really create something meaningful, it takes time. This illusion of overnight success, I think it's also very problematic and very Silicon Valley like. You go on LinkedIn and you read about Cursor like 0 to 100 million ARR in 9 months. Impressive, but this is one company out of I don't know how many.
Many.
So if you put yourself if you ask yourself, can I do the same? Should I do the same? Am I entitled to do the same? Quite problematic.
Entitled, say more about that, because that's an interesting choice of words.
But this something, and again, I don't want to fall into the stereotypes, because you were right, Dan, that as we grow a little bit older, we fall victims of the same stereotypes ourselves. But this culture of entitlement is very it's one of our biggest threats.
Do you think it'll infect Greece as well? I don't think it has yet, but do you think it will?
No, but it's very likely to do. It's very likely to do, because now Greece, of course, we are not in a crisis similar to 2010, of course. but Greece is not a paradise, right? So there are pockets of the economy who are doing very well and pockets of society, and there are other parts of the society who do very, very bad and or are still very, very weak. So in the areas where they do very well, this culture of entitlement starts to rise.
Okay.
So it takes a lot of education to deal with that.
This is going to be one of your future battles. Let's come down a little bit from Manalappus and back to Epignosis and talk about some of the challenges that you've faced in scaling up to be at present a 50 million ARR market leader. What have been some of the challenges and lessons you've learned about scaling and are learning about scaling the business? And let me just also say, throw in a few words about AI as either a challenge, problem, enabler, distraction. Go ahead, Thanos, why don't you take it? What have been some of the big challenges and how you've dealt with them?
Let me start by saying that I can see two very discrete periods within the company history. The first period, when we were a very small company, we were trying to understand what the world needs, and we tried many different things to pivot to different things in order to find something that worked at scale. This took a lot of time because we didn't have a lot of money. And we were a very small company we did all kinds of mistakes as a small company. And we pivoted in a number of ways in a non-destructive way. I'm saying that the pivots were not destructive in the sense that each pivot retained some value created or some knowledge created from the previous pivot. But it took a lot of time. It took us from 2003 up to 2011, actually, 8 years in order to create a product that can scale. So that was the first period of the company. The second period, the scale period, we found something that worked in practice. We built the team around our abilities as well. We were introverts, so created a company that is a company of introverts focused on what works in practice. And the next 10 years were the years of scaling. So we managed to scale the company and through the talent LMS product to 50 million in ARR. And now, in reality, we are moving to the third period, third era of the company, which has a number of unique characteristics. First of all, we are not running the company as founders anymore. We have a professional management team within the company. Also, we have a new entrant in the picture, which is the AI, which can be an opportunity and a threat for learning. And it will have an effect in everything, but especially in learning, I'm seeing a huge impact.
Yeah.
How will you say it? I mean, nobody really knows right now how AI will shape learning in the next 5-10 years. We need to be aware that the change is here, but we need to try things beyond the front line of developments in our field. It's a threat and opportunity at the same time. So this is the third era of the company. More questions and answers actually of how this will evolve in the next few years. As founders, we're aware that there is a moving target right now of how the new management and how the AI will evolve our field. But yeah, I mean, I have no real answers. Many questions, but no.
But I think, wouldn't you agree that it's fair to say that AI is going to have a huge, major impact on what you do and your customers are doing in this area of education, and you've got to maybe lead a transition in which you become in some way AI native, and in a way change your DNA to be AI native. Bunch of letters. Sorry.
This is a necessity actually for survival. I'm pretty clear around that. It's not about the product itself. It's not about making a product that is AI native. It's about making a company that understands AI and uses AI in every part of its operation, because there are huge levels of optimization that can be unlocked through AI. And this is not easy actually to do, because every member within the team is operating through a certain way. So there is, let's say, a change process, and that creates a lot of challenges. But I think that the challenge and opportunities are both around the product and around how the company operates.
Comments, Dimitris, about AI and your future?
I really think that it's an unprecedented opportunity for Epignosis and for companies generally in learning for some very practical reasons. First of all, content development was always the biggest barrier for e-learning. The LMS itself was a fraction of the total cost. Now, content it's becoming so easy. Personalization is becoming very easy. So, but on the same time, the need for an LMS will always be there because it's about managing and measuring a process. So that's not about AI. So the LMS will be there and it can become much more powerful and affordable, which is amazing. Also, for a company like Epignosis, actually, even before the Gen AI era, we had the right DNA about automation, about efficiency. So that's all amazing news. Generally, I think we are going through a transition, if it's the right word, like very similar to the web in 1998, 1999. Very similar. Gen AI will be everywhere and new technologies that will come out of that. Of course, there will be a lot of greed. There will be a lot of over expectations. Companies will collapse. There will be a bubble, of course. My anticipation is that everything will happen faster and the impact will be bigger because we talk a lot about the dot-com bubble, but giants like Google or Amazon or I don't know, they are all products of the dot-com bubble, right? So there will be amazing new companies out of this transition, but I would be very careful with so study the fundamentals, like the numbers, look at the numbers. The valuations get completely crazy. Just look at the fundamentals. But the transition is happening, and I must say, I'm very happy. And that's why I remain, after 22 years, I remain very, very optimistic about Epignosis, because I think we are uniquely positioned to catch this wave.
You mentioned 22 years, and I promise my listeners to keep the Scale App podcasts relatively short, sort of a car trip to the supermarket, and at least until checkout. So I want to just end with one question. I won't ask you, Dimitris, because we already know your answer to this question from Yodek, but I'll ask you, Thanos, if you were to meet your 20-year-old younger self 20 years ago in, let's say, 2005, 6, 7, 8, knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self?
That's an interesting question. Perhaps now that I know what we did and what worked and what didn't work in practice, I would say be careful with VC money, even when you're profitable. Perhaps you can do whatever you want without VC money. I always say that getting money from VCs is like getting a loan, nothing to celebrate. It's a kind of loan. You need to focus on customers and products as we already did. Perhaps from our journey, at least, I think that we should, we were very focused around profitability. Perhaps we could become a bit less focused on profitability in order to go a bit faster, because it took 20 years actually to make the company of the size. I think we could do it in 2/3 of the time, but still it takes a lot of time. I mean, obviously it takes a lot of time. And for me personally, what I learned the hard way is that engineering problems are much easier than people problems. And get you aware that. And it was a very interesting, let's say painful personal journey from being a builder to being an operator. Because when the company was very small, I was very hands-on with the product and I liked this kind of working. And then when the company became bigger, I had to become an operator as a CTO and then CEO of the company. And these are totally different kind of jobs. I would say to myself, okay, be aware of this change, make your clear decision if you want to become an operator or you want to retain the builder mentality. Because for me, entrepreneurship was about building things and not making money. It's a way to build things that I like. At the heart, I'm a builder. That's the gap.
Great. Understood. Well, I want to thank you so much, really, Thanos, Papagelis, and Dimitris Tsingos, two co-founders of an amazing company called Epignosis. And we're going to have to watch this journey of Epignosis as it continues to evolve and grow and meet the various challenges and opportunities that AI, among other things, as well as all kinds of macroeconomic issues, have to be met. And this is a venture that was created and is based in Greece, although it's a global venture. And I think most of the world would not even think of it as a Greek venture. They just think of it as a leading supplier of LMS. So I want to thank both of you very much for sharing your insights and your time in Scale Up Podcasts. Just to remind everybody that Scale Up Podcasts, it's free. I'm Dan Eisenberg. I created Scale Up Podcasts because I love scaling up. I love learning about what makes companies grow. There's always a certain amount of mystery in it. In retrospect, it looks kind of simple, but in prospect and in real time, it looks very challenging. And not everybody makes it, and certainly not everybody makes it to 50 million ARR. And I'm sure that when you're 500 million ARR, you're going to look back and say, my God, we once were this little small company being interviewed on Scale Up Podcasts. So Dimitris and Thanos, thank you so much for spending your time.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. It's been a great pleasure, and congrats for the great podcast. Thank you.
Have a nice day. Bye.